a machete, a green bandana, a mission that ends with a body on the pavement. This is not a movie script. This is the operating manual of a street gang that has been killing people in Massachusetts since before some of its own members were born. And on June 9th, federal prosecutors finally got their hands on the document that proves it. 26 alleged leaders, members, and associates of the Trinitarios were indicted on federal racketeering charges tied to 5 murders, 19 attempted murders, drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, and robbery. 24 of them were arrested the same morning, pulled out of homes in Lawrence, Lynn, Boston, and Haverhill, while Homeland Security Investigations agents executed 8 federal search warrants across 4 cities at once. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a gang founded inside a New York prison cell built a criminal empire across an entire state, why investigators call their internal rulebook a Magna Carta, what a swarm execution actually looks like on a Massachusetts street, and what happened when 2 of their own members flipped and started talking. Stay until the end, because the number of murders this gang is actually connected to across 2 years of federal investigation is worse than anyone outside law enforcement realized. Subscribe now because we track every one of these indictments as they happen. Let's start with where the Trinitarios actually came from. In the early 1990s, inside Rikers Island, one of the most violent jails in America, a group of incarcerated Dominican men decided they needed protection. Hispanic inmates were being targeted, and the men who would become the founders of the Trinitarios built an organization specifically to fight back inside the walls. That origin story matters because it explains everything about how this gang still operates more than 30 years later. The Trinitarios were never built as a loose street crew. They were built as a structured, disciplined organization with rules, ranks, and consequences for breaking them. That structure followed them out of Rikers Island and into cities across the Northeast, and by the time federal investigators caught up with the Massachusetts branch, it had metastasized into something far more organized than most people assume a street gang can be. Court documents reveal the Trinitarios in Massachusetts operate through chapters in Lawrence, Lynn, Boston, and Haverhill, and each chapter has what prosecutors call a cabinet, a formal leadership structure that recruits new members, disciplines anyone who steps out of line, and collects revenue from the street. This is not improvised. According to federal filings, the gang maintains a written document referred to internally as the Magna Carta that lays out the organization's structure, its rules, its slogans, its colors, and its practices. Type yes in the comments if you didn't know street gangs in America were operating off of written constitutions, because this is the part that should terrify you. New recruits are assigned what the gang calls missions. These are not symbolic initiation tasks. Federal court documents describe missions as violent acts, shootings, beatings, fistfights against rival gang members, assigned to prove loyalty and earn rank inside the cabinet structure. Fail a mission, and the discipline comes from inside the organization itself, not from a rival gang. And the Trinitarios have a documented, almost ritualized method of violence that investigators specifically flagged in this case, the swarm execution. It works like this. A target is identified, sometimes for disrespecting the organization, sometimes for standing in rival territory, sometimes simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Multiple members converge on that single target at once, frequently armed with machetes, overwhelming the victim before they have any chance to run or fight back. No single member carries the full weight of the act. No single member can be isolated as the sole trigger man. It is violence engineered for deniability, spread across a group so that the organization survives even when one member gets caught. This is not a rumor. This is language used directly by federal investigators to describe the pattern of violence this gang has carried out across Massachusetts for years, and it is the reason prosecutors reach for the RICO statute instead of charging these cases as individual street crimes. RICO does not require prosecutors to prove who swung the machete. It requires them to prove the organization exists, that it operates through a pattern of racketeering activity, and that the defendant knowingly participated in it. That is what turns 26 separate street criminals into one federal conspiracy case. And here's what makes this case bigger than one indictment. This is not the first round of charges against this organization. In February 2025, federal prosecutors already secured RICO conspiracy charges against 22 leaders and members of the Lynn chapter specifically, connected to 6 murders and 11 attempted murders. That case took down the state leadership structure of the Lynn cabinet in one coordinated sweep. That was Phase 1. What happened on June 9, 2026 is Phase 2, expanding the prosecution beyond Lynn into Lawrence, Boston, and Haverhill. And when you combine both rounds of prosecution, the numbers become staggering. Over the past 2 years, the U.S. Attorney's Office has now charged a total of 56 members of the Trinitarios in Massachusetts, alleged to have committed or participated in 11 murders and 30 attempted murders since 2017. 11 murders, 30 attempted murders, from one gang. Operating in a handful of small Massachusetts cities most Americans have never heard of. If you think that number should be higher given how long this organization has existed, hit like right now because we're about to show you exactly how deep this investigation went to build a case this large. This is where Homeland Security Investigations comes in, working under the Homeland Security Task Force framework established by President Trump's Executive Order 14,159, the same initiative driving Operation Take Back America nationwide. The task force in Boston pulled together agents and officers from HSI, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, the U.S. Marshals Service, IRS Criminal Investigation, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, and multiple state and local departments across Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine, including state police from 3 states and county sheriff's departments that had been quietly feeding intelligence into this case for months. This was not a single raid built in a weekend. This was a multi-jurisdictional, multi-phase investigation that began in 2024 and has been building case by case, indictment by indictment, for 2 full years, with investigators deliberately waiting to bring the full weight of the RICO charge rather than picking off individual members one street arrest at a time. And while the June 9th indictment covers dozens of defendants, 2 names inside this case tell you exactly how prosecutors cracked it open. In May 2026, a defendant named Weston Lantigua pleaded guilty to RICO conspiracy. 1 month later, in June 2026, Luis Jeffrey Santana pleaded guilty to the same charge. These are not minor players entering plea deals to avoid a parking ticket. RICO conspiracy conviction carries a sentence of up to life in prison, 5 years of supervised release, and a fine up to $250,000. Anyone pleading guilty to that charge is doing so because federal prosecutors already have overwhelming evidence, and cooperating is the only path to a reduced sentence. When members inside a documented, disciplined criminal organization start pleading guilty and cooperating, that is the moment an investigation accelerates from building a case to dismantling an entire network, because every cooperating witness hands prosecutors more names, more dates, more corroboration for murders that were previously unsolved on paper but well known on the street. On the morning of June 9th, that dismantling became public. HSI special agents executed 8 federal search warrants simultaneously across Lawrence, Lynn, Boston, and Haverhill, timed to hit before sunrise so no one inside the organization had a chance to warn the others. 24 alleged members were taken into custody. Firearms and drugs seized during the operation were laid out for federal investigators to catalog, evidence tying specific defendants to specific violent acts spanning years of gang activity. HSI New England's acting special agent in charge, Jeffrey Grimming, put it directly. This deadly transnational street gang has inflicted senseless violence and terror on communities through drug trafficking, gun violence, kidnapping, and murder, and the task force is working to hold every one of them accountable. But the raids revealed something else about how this gang operated that investigators specifically called out. The Trinitarios were not hiding. Court documents and federal statements reference the gang producing its own music videos, members appearing on camera in Trinitarios colors, holding weapons, flashing gang signs, at one point taking over a local gas station specifically to film content, blocking pumps and customers while cameras rolled and members postured for an audience that would eventually include federal prosecutors building a racketeering case. This was an organization confident enough in its territory and its power to broadcast its own violence as entertainment while allegedly orchestrating murders behind the scenes. If you think evidence like that should be inadmissible, it isn't, and prosecutors know it. Self-produced footage of gang members displaying weapons and colors is exactly the kind of material that helps a jury understand what a criminal enterprise looks like when it isn't afraid of getting caught. And here is where this case connects to a broader federal enforcement push that goes beyond gang violence alone. The investigation also resulted in the apprehension of 7 individuals in the country illegally who have either already been deported or are currently in deportation proceedings. Federal prosecutors are treating this case as part of a combined strategy: dismantle the criminal enterprise through RICO prosecution while simultaneously removing anyone in the organization without legal status through immigration enforcement. 2 systems, 1 target, running in parallel instead of waiting for one to finish before the other begins. Here's exactly where this stands right now. 26 defendants indicted in this round, added to 22 from the February 2025 indictment, brings the total to 56 Trinitarios members charged across Massachusetts in 2 years, 11 murders, 30 attempted murders, extortion, kidnapping, robbery, drug trafficking charges tied to dozens of kilograms moved through Lawrence, Lynn, Boston, and Haverhill. Anyone convicted on the RICO conspiracy charge faces up to life in federal prison. Anyone convicted on the drug trafficking conspiracy charge faces up to 20 years, with supervised release extending up to life. 2 defendants have already pleaded guilty and are cooperating with federal prosecutors, which means more names, more evidence, and very likely more indictments are still coming. The U.S. Attorney's Office has stated directly this investigation is ongoing, and history here says that is not a formality. The jump from 22 defendants in February 2025 to 56 defendants by June 2026 shows a prosecution that keeps growing every time it opens the door further. This case is part of Operation Take Back America, the nationwide initiative marshaling federal resources against cartels, transnational gangs, and organized violent crime across the country, and Massachusetts just became one of its most significant targets. A gang born in a New York prison cell in the 1990s built a documented, disciplined criminal organization with written rules, ranked leadership, and a defined method of execution, and it operated in plain sight in small American cities for decades, filming its own music videos and flashing its own colors on camera before federal investigators finally had enough evidence to take down 56 of its members in 2 coordinated waves. The communities in Lawrence, Lynn, Boston, and Haverhill lived next to this organization's cabinet structure for years without a name for what they were seeing. Now it has a name, a federal case number, and 56 defendants attached to it. If you want to know what happens when the remaining Trinitarios leadership goes to trial, whether more cooperating witnesses bring this case even higher, and whether the 11 murders on record right now turn out to be the final number, subscribe. We are tracking every indictment as it happens. If this gave you the full picture, you know what to do.